Greetings to one and all, it's your old buddy Jay here, coming at you with another episode of Countermeasures J Play. Now, I have been playing Robocop Rogue City over the last week, and I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed with it because the last gameplay session that I had wasn't good, and the frame rate dropped off, and it's just started getting to be a bit of a mess. It was borderline unplayable. So unfortunately, I had to pull the plug on my gameplay. I might try and go back in and complete the mission with Ed 209, but he was like stop motion on screen. It was stuttering so bad. The frame rate was totally buggered. Anyway, so I've played about 5 to 6 hours of this game. I believe that the campaign is about 15 to 20 hours, I think. Some people are finishing it in 12. I had this set on the hardest difficulty because I wanted a bit of a challenge. That might have been my mistake. So what can I say? Right, let's go from the top. What does it look like? It looks pretty good in places. So when you're looking around at puddles and things, and when they're setting the scene for you going into a building, all the fires and the rundown Detroit environment, it's pretty cool. It looks good. Robocop himself looks quite good. Like here on screen, he looks quite good. But then when you're playing and there's any kind of cutscenes with him in it, the finish on him is awful. Like the artifacting all around him, you're seeing all the pixelation, all the anti-aliasing is popping all over the place. The depth of field between him and the background is so jarring. The background's kind of all slightly out of focus and whatever. He's here, but then there's all this pixelation going on around him because obviously they're trying to get depth in there, but it's not rendering fast enough, or something's not quite right. That's been consistently the same since I started, and then in the last mission I just played, where it was all going completely janky, on the PS5, which is like, which can handle Spider-Man 2, which is like unbelievably beautiful in gameplay and the rendering and everything like that. This isn't Spider-Man 2. It doesn't need that level of finish. It's very basic. You're just a tank walking through corridors. So it's not even like Call of Duty level of quality in terms of explosions and things interacting with each other. So that definitely needs some work. Sorry, Taeon, but it definitely needs some work, as it did in the Terminator franchise that you launched a game not that long ago. So this is down the same vein. This is definitely better than the Terminator. I keep saying it wrong. I think it's Retribution or Regurgitation. So that's that. The gameplay is fine. I mean, I had fun with starting to build up, like your weapon being able to fire rapid fire, and there were different guns you could use. So you could walk through and have like a shotgun or an AK-47 or a machine pistol or whatever. Other than your gun that you have here, that's on screen, the traditional Robocop Mark 5 or whatever it's called, or M9 or whatever. He looks weird walking around with an AK-47, so I use the big machine gun occasionally, but it's not the kind of game where he needs to have all that stuff. So what I would say is just focus on one thing, right? Just have one gun. It does a variety of different things, but it's just his gun, like in the movies. So the interaction, the gameplay, the repetition of the people attacking you. I mean, I was about 5 or 6 hours in. I think I saw like 4 different guys, 4 different bad guys, and it was just wave after wave. So yeah, it wasn't great. The rendering of all the people when they're talking to each other and when they're giving you information, that was terrible. Like, it looked like a PS2 game, like seriously, like janky. I don't want to bag on it for the finish, because it's obviously, they're not a AAA company, but they're trying to get up there, and I respect that, and I like to see smaller companies rise. But they don't want to jump before they can crawl, They don't want to skip out the running stage. Like, just do something smaller, do it really well, job done. Like with this, I thought, oh well, I'll check to see how long the chapters are, to see how much I've got to get through for the gameplay, because I thought, you know, Call of Duty is like normally between sort of 5 and 10 hours or whatever. It seems to be the sweet spot for kind of shooting campaigns. I've done probably like 5 or 6 missions. I'm about 5 to 6 hours in, and I looked, there's 31 campaign missions. I was like, okay, so average gameplay is between 15 to 20. So for me, that's probably going to be like 25 to 30. I'm just not going to put 30 hours into this. I just refuse to do it, especially if there's the chance of it just bodging up like it did at the end of the last gameplay. So the length is an issue, which has affected the quality. They could have just made this a tight 7 hours. I think it was like £40 or £35 or whatever, so it's not overly priced. It's not like £70 Call of Duty getting ripped off left, right and centre. It's not that. But I'm still not sure it's worth it. It feels like a £20 campaign to me. There's no multiplayer. You know, I don't really want multiplayer in this. Fix everything else first before you turn that on. You know, so it has like some issues. I quite like the tone of it all, you know, but that was something that came from the movies, so they've just kind of tried to transfer that across, and it works somewhat successfully. I feel Robocop was always like one of the movies when I was a kid that everybody loved, right? It was kind of brutal, Paul Verhoeven movie. It was it was over the top. It was brutal. It was all about sort of, you know, a downtrodden city, Detroit, that had this massive crime epidemic going on. So they have to introduce this robot, and it was a good idea. Now the first film had its problems, but it's still a classic. And Peter Weller, we'll say Paul Weller, Peter Weller playing Murphy in Robocop, brilliant. They never should have had any sequels, because it doesn't hold up past the first film. There's nothing there. There's just nothing there. It's just more of the same, and it can only get progressively worse and diluted. And I feel that's where this game suffers as well, is that like the story, that what I'm going through here in terms of like what the story's about, they're all things that are just retrod from the film franchise. They haven't tried to do anything different with it. You know, they could have done something really cool. Well, one of the gameplays I was talking about it, which would have been like, you know, maybe he doesn't age, right? So why don't you set it in Detroit in 100 years time or 400 years time, where they bring him back to life? That would be so much cooler. You know, he could have flashbacks to when he was shot, and you could have the scenes where you're in the rundown construction yards getting shot at by snipers. You could do that in a flashback way, but do something different with it. This is just what people expect, and it's pandering to what people expect. Whereas I feel when you're a smaller company like this, take some risks. You know, you've got a decent budget, not a massive budget. You want a surefire hit. There's a way to do it all. Just strip it right down. I just imagine 15 walls of storyboards for all of this stuff. Cut that down to like one wall of storyboards. Make it one consistent story. Do it really well. Tell an interesting story. There was nothing interesting about this story. It was all predictable. It was like a crap sequel, basically, is what it was like. Yes, they've got the branding on there. Yes, they've got the member berries, which is, remember when he got shot? Here's the line that was drawn around him. Remember the Robocop logo? Oh, here it is. You know, I like the targeting thing and the style of all the computers and the interface. That's probably the best part of this game, is that they did nail what it would be like to have a Robocop helmet on. And the issue I've always had with Robocop, and I think also with the franchise, and why it never progressed past really the first... You know, the second film is, you know, it's a stretch. So obviously, I think it was originally written by Frank Miller, and he's in that movie as well. And you know, again, they developed it a little bit, but it wasn't really very good. The first one is, you know, start and finish, the best out of all of them. But you know, he was originally based on Judge Dredd. So like, if you look at like how he looks, his suit isn't that far off Judge Dredd with the helmet and the half mask. I think they have some production shots from the movie originally where he actually has Judge Dredd's helmet on, and they literally were ripping it off wholesale. I think there was some copyright issues, even at that stage where they had to rethink it. It's about a futuristic lawman, so is Judge Dredd. It's about a rundown city, so is Judge Dredd, Mega City 1. So there's loads of comparisons. It just doesn't have, like, the thing they don't have behind it, which Judge Dredd does, is really good writing. There's nowhere for this guy to go. They need to do something drastic, like level Detroit with a nuclear weapon and put him somewhere else. What would Robocop be like in 1,000 years' time, when maybe, I don't know, the world's been destroyed by a pandemic or whatever, and there's only like a certain amount of people left on Earth, and he's protecting them. I could do something really good with it. Change the way he looks, so there's bits of him that still look the same, so there's a bit of member berries there, but he's developed, maybe he's a different color. I don't know. You've got this chassis, this car here. What does the next one look like? It doesn't have to be the stealth version of like the reboot was. It could be just a development of that. And the people around him, even in the original movie, were boring. Like Lewis and all those characters, they weren't very good. Clarence Boddicker, the bad guy, he was probably the best thing in it. He was really hamming it up and doing a good job. After him, everyone else was always going to fail, because that was an absolutely classic performance. So the surrounding cast weren't very good. Whereas, like, Judge Dredd, for example, he has like Anderson, and he has all the other judges around him, and he has his bike, his lawmaster, and his lawgiver, and all this other stuff. So I don't know, if you're gonna rip him off, just do it better, and they didn't, and that's why it really only survived one film. The other films weren't very good, like I said. It doesn't stretch to a video game that's any good, in my opinion. It's just a real shame. I remember when I first got my Amiga, the first game I played was a Robocop demo, where it was like just a side shooter, Robocop 2, and I really enjoyed that. It was really fun. It was like a short, like 5-minute demo or whatever, and I played that again and again and again on Christmas Day, I can remember, and I absolutely loved it. Just being Robocop and being able to do all this stuff. But even that, looking back, it didn't have any story to it. You're just shooting things, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. But don't try and tag all this other crap in. It doesn't work. And if you are going to do it, if you are going to make it 31 levels with all the side missions and whatever, if you are going to have a story that you want to be interesting, just trim it down. Make it more compact, more concise. Make it more... just make it better, I think is my overall opinion. And you can't, they say you can't polish a turd. Well, they tried, they failed. I know that people have been going on about how good this game is. I haven't really had a very good experience with it. I feel like maybe my expectations were a little too high, because I thought it was going to be crap. Then people said, oh no, it's really good, and then I went into it, and it was moribund, is what I'm going to say. So that is my review for Robocop Rogue City. I suspect there might be a sequel. I might come back to it at some point. I might try and, I'll reboot everything and see if I can get the stuttering to stop. That's a deal breaker for me. And unfortunately, I can't get a refund. So that's that. I have to give it a score. So out of 10, I am going to give it... Did you hear that? That was a massive thunderclap. Oh, all my computers just went funny. That was a huge, great big thunderclap. It was a lightning bolt just flashed outside. It's all flashing. Right. Out of 10, someone doesn't like me up there. Sorry about your game. Out of 10, I'm going to give this a mighty 4 out of 10. I wouldn't recommend you play it. That's it. Until next time, be good, stay safe, and be kind to one another. Peace out. We gone. Ow, ow, ow.